Hi, guys, and welcome back to Gettysburg. Today is part two of our journey. We will be discussing the haunted Welty house where I slept, the real Jenny Wade house, the battlefield, and then ending with some special listener stories of real life paranormal encounters in Gettysburg. So get ready, buckle up. Here we go. First up, we have the Welty House. And if you remember from part one, this is where I spent the night. The Welty House is part of the Brick House Inn. There is the original Victorian house, and then right next door is the Welty House. And I must admit, going into this, I knew nothing about the Welty House other than it being reportedly haunted. So it's important to note that I did my research after when I got home. So what I'm about to read, I knew nothing about. And that is important to remember for when I go into my experience there. So the lovely internet had to say, tucked quietly along Welty Road in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, the Welty House does not announce itself with grandeur. It sits with a kind of solemn patience, as though it knows exactly what it has witnessed and has never quite let go. To understand this house, you have to step back to the summer of 1863. Soldiers, both Union and Confederate, flooded the property. The house became a temporary refuge, then a field hospital. Blood stained the floors. Wounded men cried out in agony in rooms once filled with ordinary family life. Surgeons worked frantically, often with limited supplies under conditions that by today's standards would seem unbearable. Outside, the land surrounding the home became a resting place for the dead. Hastily dug graves dotted the property. Some bodies were later moved, many were not. And that, locals say, is where the house truly changed. Long after the war ended and the guns fell silent, the Welty house never seemed to return to being just a home. Over the years, residents and visitors alike have reported a feeling that lingers, something heavy, watchful, and deeply tied to the past. People speak of hearing footsteps where no one stands, not loud, deliberate steps, but the faint shuffle of someone moving slowly as if wounded. At times, the sounds seem to come from the upper levels, other times from empty rooms below, echoes that refuse to be anchored in one place. Doors have been known to open on their own, not violently, but quietly, almost carefully, as if someone is entering or leaving, trying not to be heard. More unsettling are the moments when doors close without explanation, sealing off spaces that have been open just seconds before. But it's the sightings that truly give the house its reputation. Shadowy figures have been glimpsed in doorways and hallways, forms that vanish the moment they're noticed directly. Some describe the faint outline of men in period clothing standing still, watching. Others report quick movements, a figure turning a corner, a shape darting across a room, always just out of reach. Perhaps the most chilling accounts come from those who have claimed to encounter what seems like a residual presence, a kind of imprint left behind by trauma. Visitors have described sudden waves of emotion, anxiety, sorrow, and even an overwhelming sense of dread that appears without warning and dissipates just as quickly. as if the house remembers. And then there are the grounds. The surrounding land, once soaked with events of the battle, is said to be just as active as the house itself. Some report hearing distant voices carried on the wind, indistinct, murmuring, like a conversation you can almost understand but never quite grasp. In the quiet hours of evening, there have been claims of faint cries or calls echoing from no identifiable source. Skeptics point to natural explanations: old wood settling, imagination fueled by history, and the power of suggestion in a town already steeped in ghost stories. And perhaps, in some cases, that's all it is. But even skeptics often admit one thing after visiting: the Welty House feels different. Not dramatically haunted in the way movies portray, but quietly unsettled, as though time inside its walls didn't move forward cleanly after 1863, as though something stayed behind, not out of malice, but because it never had the chance to leave. Today, the house remains a lesser known chapter in Gettysburg long list of haunted sites. It doesn't draw the same crowds as famous locations like the Jenny Wade House or Devil's Den, but for those who seek it out, that obscurity only adds to its power. Because at the Welty House, the past doesn't feel like history. It feels present, waiting, watching, and remembering. So that's what the internet had to say. Right now, I am going to show a little video tour of my room, which was the Alabama room. Check it out. So I walk in my room, the Alabama room, and it is freezing. And we all know that cold means ghosts. So I was excited. And I believe while I was staying there, I had three different things happen to me. The decor was odd. It was like old-timey but creepy. Like there was a portrait of these two kids just like staring into the distance. And I'm like, who are these kids? And then on display, they had a little girl's dress. And I wasn't sure if it was like an actual piece of clothing for a kid or if it was a doll's dress. So I got my phone, I took a little video of it, and in the video, there is an orb. So that's number one. I'm going to put the video in right here. You see for yourselves. This is a decoration in my room, and I don't know if it's like, who's seeing that orb right there? I don't know if it's like a kid's dress or a doll's dress or what, but it's creeping me out and I might hide it in the bathroom. Then the second thing that happened, I was in bed with the cover under the covers, and something touched my leg. Like it felt almost as if something just like a cat sort of like jumped up on my lap. Like it was very like agile and like soft, but definitely some pressure. And so that was that. And then thirdly, the bathroom door opened by itself. And I had no way of knowing, as I said in my research, because I did the research when I got home, I didn't know that was a thing. So I definitely believe that these three things were at least a little bit paranormal. And that pretty much wraps up the Welty house. I had a wonderful experience there. I would definitely say again. Shout out to Brick House Inn. You guys are lovely. I'm just going to insert a few photos from the property here and a little video because I thought it was funny. I saw a black cat and I was like, oh my God, like my cat Kai like teleported to visit me. So there's a cute little cat. And then we will be back with our next stop on our journey. My original plan for day 2 was to wake up, go to the battlefield, and go home. It was Memorial Day, and there was apparently a parade in town. I hate parades. So I needed to get out of there before this tomfoolery started. But being as though the day before I did this farce of a paranormal investigation at Jenny Wade's birth house, it kind of left me wanting more. So there was the real Jenny Wade house where she was shot and killed, and it's right by my bed and breakfast. So I made a little time in between waking up and going to the battlefield to go to the Jenny Wade house. And I just went there willy nilly and walked in, and I was like, hey, are you guys doing tours today? And they're like, yeah, we have one in 20 minutes. So I booked the tour. Very nice, $14. AAA discount. I love a discount. I love a coupon. And, I just waited around till the tour started. And I was so happy because finally our tour guide was dressed in Victorian clothing. He was in full costume. This is what I was waiting for. And I did have something prepared to speak about the house, but I think I'm just going to talk. Um, Tour guide's name was Dave, very knowledgeable, super great. And he takes us out. We were in the gift shop at the time. And he takes us out to get into the house. And he points out that there is a well. And this well is one of the only working wells to this day from Civil War time. And it really shed some light on how people lived back then. Like, people only bathed once a week. And if you were going to go to the well to get some water to take a bath, everybody in the house was taking a bath with that same water. When they were done with the baths, they would use the same water to wash the dishes. Then they would use it again to wash clothes, and so on and so forth. So you could see why people back in the day didn't live so long because they didn't really know about germs and hygiene. And they didn't have working bathrooms in the house. So they all had chamber pots, which was lovely. We do have a picture of that. So the tour starts out, and Dave explains to us that this house where Jenny died was not her house. It was her sister's house, her sister Georgia and her husband John McClelland. And the house is actually a duplex. And a family named the McLean family lives on the other side of the house. So we walk into the living room, and there's a nice fireplace and there's a bed. Why is there a bed in the living room? Georgia was giving birth. She was a brand new mom, just gave birth to a newborn, and in those days, they would bring the bed from upstairs and put it, on the first floor so you're not just schlepping around when you're 9 months pregnant. So, um, we were in the living room, and the tour guide points out that there are bullet holes in the fireplace, the mantle of the fireplace. And I will show those in a picture. We'll show the pictures at the end. And unfortunately, we were not allowed to film in the house, so I am sort of recalling this from memory. But I do have quite a few pictures. So Jenny's sister Georgia had a really close call. She's, there with her newborn baby, and she almost gets shot. And then Jenny, a little bit about her. She was 20 years old, single, I believe, lived across town, and the battle had come right up to their doorstep. Like, there is just chaos going on outside. And Jenny was being a good Samaritan and baking bread for the Union soldiers, which was super nice. And what happened was a stray bullet came in through the kitchen door and hit Jenny right in the heart while she's baking bread. And she died instantly. Excuse me. um, and it, it, nobody kind of knew right away. And then her mother saw her, and her mother went into hysterics, screaming, carrying on as you should be. And in comes two Union soldiers. And technically, this was sort of against the rules for the soldiers to just abandon the battle and help out civilians. But they came in, they were trying to help. And meanwhile, something else had happened. During the battle, all the guns and everything, there is a thing, and I'll insert a picture of this as well. There is this parrot bullet shell thing. The only thing I could relate it to is like a big grenade. And this thing had shot onto the roof, but it didn't explode. And it was still active, and it could explode at any time. So these soldiers come in, they had noticed that this had happened with this parrot thing. And they're like, look, you guys need to get out of here. And the only way, the most logical thing for them to do was to go into the basement. And the only way to get into the basement, there wasn't a basement door in the house. You had to go outside of the house and do the double doors, the trap door things, and get into the basement. And on Jenny and Georgia's side of the house, that's where all the action is. And they're like, well, we can't take them outside, they're going to get killed. So, what they do is they go upstairs, and in one of the bedrooms, the wall that is between their house and the McLean's house is just sort of a brick wall. And the soldiers begin creating a hole in the wall. And I will show that as well. Big hole. So, what they do, and there it was kind of a process because Jenny's mom refused to leave Jenny's body in the house. So they somehow had to transport the sister, Georgia, and her newborn baby, and Jenny, a dead body, upstairs and through this hole in the wall, and then go back downstairs and into the McLean's basement. So they end up doing this. Um, it took a while, obviously. They wrapped Jenny's body in a sheet and got her through the hole, got her down into the basement. And saying it's a basement is quite a stretch. It's more like a root cellar that you would find Norman Bates' mom in. And we went down there and was told that the family stayed there for about 18 hours until the battle stopped. And then they ultimately buried Jenny in the yard for a couple months. She was then moved to a local church where she was buried. That church closed. So they once again exhumed Jenny's body and moved her, third time's a charm, to the Evergreen Cemetery, which is right up the road and right next to the battlefield. I will show you pictures of that as well. Um, and I know I sound like a broken record when I say this, but just to reiterate, Jenny was the only civilian in the Battle of Gettysburg to be killed. Think about that statistic. If you think about modern warfare and all of the innocent lives that are lost with bombings and everything like that, it blows my mind that they had one casualty of a civilian. And I went, after the tour, I went to the cemetery, to the Evergreen Cemetery, and I went and they had beautiful things for the soldiers. I have a picture of that. And then ultimately went to Jenny's grave. And Jenny has a very special honor. Next to her grave, she has is what is called a perpetual flag. And from what the tour guide said, the flag, a perpetual flag, can be flying 24/7. It doesn't have to come down at half mast on certain days, and it can fly at night without being illuminated. Apparently, other flags, if you have a flag up, you have to have a light on it during the night. So that's in the picture, you'll see that. And the cool fact is, Jenny is one of only two women that have this honor. Can you guess who the other woman is? Betsy Ross. So that was really cool. Went to her grave, paid my respects. And next, we are on to the battlefield. I forgot to mention a couple things. I just want to explain the pictures real quick. We have a statue of Jenny outside of the house. We have the bullet hole that went through the kitchen door and killed her. We have that parrot bomb thing that was on the roof that everybody thought was going to explode. We also have the wall with the hole in it, and that is where you can see our lovely tour guide. And in the basement, they had like a fake body wrapped up in a sheet, pretending it was Jenny. I thought that was nice and macabre. I loved it. And yeah, just some other random pictures from the house, the chamber pot, stuff like that. Um, all right. And next up, battlefield. Last stop on our 2-day journey is the battlefield. And I passed the battlefield coming into town, so I knew exactly where it was. I didn't even need to GPS it. I was so happy. So there's a big sign, says, battlefield entry history center or something. So I went from the Evergreen Cemetery right up the road to the battlefield. I park my car and start walking to the left. And I'm walking a little bit. I end up in the bushes. this is wrong. So you will come to learn that sometimes I lack basic human skills. So I turn around and I'm like, oh, that way, where the crowd's going? Okay. So go the other way. And I pass a little statue of Abe Lincoln, which of course I took a selfie with, and get to the building. And I was surprised by it because the building was very modern looking. And everything in Gettysburg is very stuck in the past, not in a bad way, in a good way. And it's very old timey and very Victorian. So I was surprised by this very modern looking building. Go in, of course, there's like a TSA checkpoint going through the metal detector, had to check the bag. And by this point, I had to pee. So I went to the bathroom, come out, and I need to know my options. So I go over to the information desk, nice young man. And this is where I learned that you don't simply just walk around the battlefield because the battlefield is everywhere, essentially. And I will insert a picture of the map. You have to drive around the battlefield. So I'm like, okay, what are my options? Option number one, he goes, well, you can get on the tour bus. I'm sorry, what? That is a hard no for me. I do not do tour buses, and I don't want to talk about it. I don't care if you are Jesus Christ himself. I am not getting on the tour bus. I do not want to go to the hospital again. End of discussion. What are my other options? Well, you can go on your phone and download an app for like $10, and it takes you drive along and you listen to the app and it tells you where to stop and then it'll tell you a story. And I was like, okay. But the whole production was like 2 hours long. And the thought of doing that plus another 2 hour drive home was very ugh to me. So that left me with my third option of doing it myself and kind of just going along. Thankfully, the route had a lot of signs, and I love good signage. So it had arrows everywhere to go. And we will see in my pictures, we saw Little Round Top, which that's where a lot of the battle had been done. Um, Devil's Den, which is really cool. There's some cool boulders there and rocks. And also Sachs Covered Bridge, which is said to be very haunted. I am going to insert some pictures here and some videos so you can take a look. And again, I apologize. I don't really have a whole lot of historical information to talk about. But then again, this isn't a history podcast, it's a ghost podcast. So that's what we're going to get to next. Okay, so we are now going to talk about some of the reported hauntings on the battlefield. And I was kind of disappointed because I didn't see anything myself. I was really hoping I would because it was sort of a rainy, misty, foggy day. I was like, "Ooh, maybe I'll see something in the mist." But I don't think I did. So, it was still very beautiful to look at. So this is the first one at Devil's Den, the Devil's Den Watcher. This is one even skeptics struggle to explain. Visitors and photographers have reported a strange man appearing amongst the boulders of Devil's Den. Remember, I said about the boulders. And he is barefoot, wearing ragged, outdated clothing, and then he disappears. Then cameras malfunction around him. Photos taken moments later show nothing, or sometimes something, but it's not fully human. Some say he's a Confederate soldier who never left the rocks where he fell. So that's haunting number one. Then we have phantom marching at night. Not seen, but heard. Late at night, especially in open fields like the wheat field or near Cemetery Ridge, people report the steady sounds of hundreds of boots marching, distant drums beating in rhythm, officers shouting commands carried in the wind. And when they turn to look, the field is empty. No reenactors, no visitors, no sound, except silence returning all at once. Many believe this is a residual haunting, replaying the movements of troops from July 1863. Then there's Little Round Top, the Little Round Top soldier encounter. One of the most detailed full body apparitions ever reported. A park visitor once described encountering a man in full Union uniform. He looked solid, completely real. His face was dirty, exhausted, and anxious. He nodded, as if acknowledging another soldier. And then, without warning, he vanished. Not faded, not walked away, just gone. And then finally, we have the Sachs covered bridge. I don't think I mentioned this before, but I'll put a picture in here. This is a crossing point. It's a beautiful old-timey covered bridge. Love a covered bridge. So this is a crossing point for more than just the living. At Sachs Covered Bridge, visitors have reported dark figures standing along the wooden beams, shapes moving behind them when no one else is present, the feeling of being watched intensely. Some claim to have seen figures hanging from the bridge, which is tied to rumors of wartime executions. That's cool. Others say they've crossed it alone, but heard footsteps following directly behind them. I think the hanging thing is cool. I would have liked to seen that. Not to be morbid or anything. Um, but yeah, that sort of wraps it up for the battlefield, and it wraps it up for Gettysburg in general. It was a wonderful 2 days. I had a great time. I definitely want to go back. There's a lot of things I didn't explore, and definitely more, history that I need to learn, and of course, haunted things. That's one thing it seems like there's no shortage, excuse me, of haunted activities to do. And I think if I went back again, instead of doing the less than desirable paranormal investigation, I would do a reenactment of the battle. I think that would have been cool to see. So it was fun. I would definitely recommend it. It's so cool that we have this great piece of history in Pennsylvania right in our backyards. It's right in the middle of the state, easy drive from relatively anywhere. Um, the other thing I regret, I would have liked to have had a nice meal there. I really wanted to go to an old pub and have like fish and chips. I didn't really have enough time to do that, so I did go to Sheetz. It is Sheetz country. We are not in Wawa country anymore. So I went to Sheetz, and believe it or not, I got fish tacos at a gas station. What could go wrong? My room had a bathroom. It was okay. But nothing happened. It was fine. They were good. They skimped on the cheese, but otherwise they were very good. But yeah, that's my trip. I look forward to doing more trips around Pennsylvania and just, melding history with the paranormal. I think it was really cool and I'm having fun so far. So, next up to end, we will be listening to two listener stories that are specific to Gettysburg. And now it's time for our listener stories. And I just want to thank everyone that has written in so far with your ghost stories. I promise I will get to each and every one of you. I just chose these two stories because they are specific to Gettysburg. So the first story is from James, and he lives in Gettysburg. And this is regarding Devil's Den. It says, I was at Devil's Den about 2 years ago. Middle of the afternoon, broad daylight. Not scary at all, right? I was walking alone and taking photos of the rocks. And I swear, I heard someone behind me. Not just a twig snapping, but like footsteps, slow and uneven. So I turn around, expecting another visitor, and there's a man standing there. He looked wrong, like his clothes didn't belong to this time. They were dirty, loose, almost falling apart. And he didn't say hi or anything. He just looked at me and pointed behind me. And then he said, very casually, you're not looking the right way. So I turned just for a second to look at what he was pointing to. And when I turned back, he was gone. There was nowhere he could have gone. No path, no sound, nothing. I left immediately and have not been back there to this day. So, thank you, James. The next one is from Amy in King of Prussia, and this is regarding the Jenny Wade house. She says, I was touring the Jenny Wade house with a small group. Everything felt normal, historical, quiet, nothing weird. And then we stepped into the kitchen, and out of nowhere, I smelled bread. Fresh bread, warm, like it just came out of the oven. I even laughed and said, oh wow, are they baking in here? And the tour guide just looked at me and said, no. Nobody else in my group mentioned it. Not one person reacted. But I could smell it so strongly, it didn't make sense. When we left the room, it was gone instantly. It was only then when I learned how Jenny Wade died. This gives me chills to this day. Thank you, Amy. Cool story. Apparently, she didn't know how Jenny Wade died before she toured the house. So that's pretty cool. Kind of similar to how I didn't know at the Weldy house that doors would open. And I went there, and lo and behold, the door opens from the bathroom. But yeah, really cool. Please keep writing to me if you want your story to be read on the podcast. Email to paparanormalpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, watch on YouTube and listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I will see you next time.